So coming into Friday night's game, the Bulls had a chance on the last game of this 5-game road trip to come out with a winning record. And you know what? If I had told you before this trip started that, hey, for this 5-game stretch, you're not going to have Vucevic, and I'd have told you they had a chance to be 3-2, you'd probably feel pretty good about the results of that road trip, right? But it really came down to this game against the Nuggets and how we were going to feel about the Bulls off of this 5-game stretch. And, for the Bulls, fortunately, they were able to face a Nuggets team that not only doesn't have a Jamal Murray due to his injury, Michael Porter Jr. due to his injuries, but also was without Nikola Jokic. So you're facing a Nuggets team on the road, yes, trying to win there for the first time since 2006, and I think since 2016, since they last beat the Nuggets in any capacity. But you're getting to do it without their 3 best players. So fortune favors the Bulls, or the goddamn lucky in their timing. And the Bulls are certainly fortunate and lucky in their timing to be able to face the Nuggets on Friday night when they did without the players that the Nuggets were missing. So it was an opportunity, a chance, and up to the Bulls to take advantage and make the most out of it. And I will say the early returns weren't exactly promising. The Bulls went down 12 early. Aaron Gordon was doing some work on the Bulls defense. You could see, oh, yeah, they're going to have some problems matching up with him tonight. You could absolutely see that coming. It was him and Monte Morris that was doing a little bit of the early damage for Denver. And you're wondering, for this Bulls team, because Jokic wasn't playing, did you just not care? The first half of the first quarter, it was really concerning because they were out of rhythm. They were out of sorts. They were having trouble matching up with Aaron Gordon. Offensively, they didn't look great. But they responded in a big way to close out the first quarter. The Bulls went on a 16-4 run and ultimately tied it up at 30 after the first quarter. Aaron Gordon led the way for the Nuggets with 10 points in the first. Monte Morris was 6 for Denver. LaVine had 10 to lead the Bulls. So at least one thing you could say recently, LaVine's been getting off to a little bit of a better start in the first quarter, in the first half, and that's certainly encouraging. Tony Bradley was doing a little bit of work in the first quarter. He had 6, and so did Derrick Jones Jr., and what ultimately proved to be a good night for him. Second quarter was more of the same. It was a competitive back and forth matchup. Offense came down a little bit. Defense played on both sides was a little bit better. But even at the half, the Bulls were up 53-52. LaVine had 12 points to lead the way, so he didn't do much in the second quarter. Derrick Jones Jr. with 10 points and 7 rebounds at the half. And, he is somebody that, we talk about some of the other big notable moves this team made in the offseason. Obviously, bringing in DeMar DeRozan was huge. Bringing in Lonzo Ball was huge. Clearly, bringing in Alex Caruso has been huge. Drafting Ayo Dosunmu. These are the moves that we talk about, but it's the moves like acquiring a Derrick Jones Jr. that we're not spending enough time talking about, because the reality is right now, when you look at Derrick Jones Jr., a lot of what he is what you drafted Patrick Williams to be. This team is much better off without Patrick Williams in the lineup because it has freed up more playing time for Derrick Jones Jr. He is what you needed, period. Controversial to say, it shouldn't be, but, we're talking about Chicago fans, so God only knows sometimes. And I give the Bulls credit in the third quarter. They didn't lay an egg. They came out very strong. They ended up being up 88-78 after 3. DeRozan, came to life in that third quarter. He had 10 points. LaVine threw in another 8, including a stretch where he had 7 straight. And you had Derrick Jones Jr., again, talking about him. He had 3 what I call big momentum dunks. Some of those dunks were just nasty. Just nasty. The types of dunks you would expect from a former slam dunk champion. But as you go into the fourth quarter, yes, they're up double digits. But, certainly looking back to the other night against Portland, you're saying, okay, let's not blow this lead. And they ultimately didn't. LaVine got hot in the fourth quarter. And we're going to talk about, hey, LaVine made some big shots, and he certainly did. He had a great night offensively. I'd argue it's one of the best games he's played this season on both ends of the floor combined. But let's not take away from the fact that Javonte Green had some key, clutch hustle plays in the last 5 or 6 minutes to get offensive rebounds, to extend plays. It's always easy to focus on the guy with the stuff that shows up on the stat sheet in the box scores, like a LaVine or a DeRozan. And I'm not saying they're not critical to the team's success, granted. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that for those that actually watch the game, you can point to those key moments and you say, Javonte Green gets that extra rebound. That made all the difference. That's why the Bulls won this game, not just the fact that LaVine ended up with 36 and DeRozan ended up with 28. And in true clutch time, which I found interesting and wasn't exactly opposed to, it was DeMar DeRozan with the big possession when the Bulls were up 2. It was DeMar DeRozan attacking the hoop. It was DeMar DeRozan getting to the free throw line and then nailing 2 clutch free throws. And then on the next Nuggets possession, getting the key defensive rebound to ice this one. And the Bulls, as a result, end up finishing out this road trip 3-2. Got to feel pretty good about it. Bulls sitting at 11-5 right now. They win 114-108. And they did all of this on the road trip without Vucevic. You got to look at that as a pretty successful thing. Sure, they were taking on a depleted Denver team. I'm not trying to pretend like they didn't, but shit happens. Just the Nuggets have been a little more unfortunate, a little more unlucky than others in terms of some of the injuries they've had and to the key players that they've had them too. But Denver's still a team on a given night. You look at their record this year, like they're still a pretty good damn team, and they showed it here. Like that's a good squad, but the Bulls were just too much for them tonight when it mattered most. Like I mentioned, Zach LaVine had 36 in what I thought was one of his 2 or 3 best games that he's played overall this season. DeMar DeRozan had 28 points, so another good night for DeMar. Derrick Jones Jr. was huge on Friday night, 16 points and 8 rebounds. The energy, the athleticism that he displayed, like I said, everything that you wanted Patrick Williams to be right now, Derrick Jones Jr. mostly actually is. For the Nuggets, Aaron Gordon led the way with 28 points and 9 rebounds. He was a problem last night. There's no question about that. Will Barton had 23. And the guy that was really fucking the Bulls up in the second half, it would have been the reason the Nuggets won this game, was Campazzo. He had 16. But the Bulls just couldn't figure out how to defend him. Like he was getting under their skin. Again, it's easy to focus on the guys that put up the biggest numbers in the box score. But it's these guys that could come in and they change momentum of game. They change the flow of a game. They change the feel of a game. And Campazzo certainly did in that second half for the Nuggets. And the Bulls should feel very good and very fortunate to have been able to hold on and escape this game with a victory, to where now they can come back home and wait till Sunday night to play the Knicks and get some revenge on New York from one of their earlier losses this season. So all in all, like I said, after the Blazers game on Wednesday night, context matters. And the context that mattered at that time was, as irritating and frustrating as that loss was to the Blazers, the reality was the Bulls were still 2-2 on that road trip, and they didn't have Vucevic. They were 10-5 after 15 games. If I told you all of those things, would you take it? You absolutely would have. And the context here is that this was a good performance for a Bulls team, yes, against a depleted Nuggets team, but they ultimately got the job done and closed this game out when they needed to. Winning on the road, especially in the Mile High City in the NBA, can be very tough, and the Bulls got it done. Winning road trip. That's some good shit to build off of for the rest of the season. Now, with that said, the one thing I want to take a moment or two on is the Bulls are lucky and fortunate to win this game because for some particular reason, they clearly haven't seen enough to realize that Coby White isn't there right now. Coby White doesn't have it. Coby White brings nothing to the table for this team right now. For those of you Bulls fans that are bothered by that because you said the past couple of years you've been looking forward to Coby White as part of the future is now. And if you can't see that every minute you give to Coby White is a minute taken away from somebody else who is better, who actually can bring more to the table, then I don't know what to tell you. You're not building for the future now. With the moves to bring in Alonzo and a DeMar, and last season to bring in Vucevic at the trade deadline, bring in Caruso. You're trying to win now. And there is no next season or 2 seasons or 3 seasons from now. Everything you do is about the here and now. That's the way it fucking works. You cannot afford to take away tick from other guys that provide more to the table for the hope of Coby White coming and doing what exactly? What exactly is this dynamic that Coby White brings? He's not a playmaker. He's not a facilitator. He's a bad defender and a mediocre at best shooter. And you look at him in that game last night, what was he, 1 of 7 or 1 of 8 from the field? He's missing layups. There's no burst. There's no confidence. Send him to the fucking G League. I don't care what the hell you do with him. He should have been traded in the offseason. I was right. Eat shit. And this is why. Because the dynamics of the team have changed. Coby White at his best is no better than the 6th best guard on this team. The 6th best guard. Tell me how I'm wrong. He's not better than Zach. He's not better than DeMar. And you're going to say, well, one of them plays the 3. You know what I mean. They're all backcourt players. They're just playing positionless basketball. He's not better than DeMar. He's not better than Zach. He's certainly not better than Lonzo Ball. He's not better than Caruso, and he sure as hell ain't better than Io right now. So at his best, he's the sixth best guard. And frankly, I'd rather see those minutes go to a Troy Brown Jr. because I think Troy Brown Jr. brings more to the table right now for this team and what they need than fucking COBY White does. Bulls fans, your mindset and perspective has to change and adjust to the times that you're in. And this is the same for the fucking Bulls coaching staff. You can force this all fucking day long, but the reality is COBY White right now is bringing you nothing to the table. It is a waste of time, and you potentially are in a spot where putting him in the lineup at key times is going to cost you games that will cost you down the road. You can't afford to do that. You can't. Over the past couple of years, I think you've overrated COBY White and thought too much of him. The reality was he was a mediocre volume scorer on a shitty team. Now you have a really good, legit team. What is his role? Answer me! The answer is he doesn't have one. Oh, he'll be fine. And even if he is, he's still the sixth best fucking guard on the team. He should only be getting garbage time minutes right now. If you can't see that, I don't know what's wrong with you. This whole thing about being patient, there is no being patient. You went all in. You have to act like you went all in. I swear to fucking God, some of you are more, what's the word I'm looking for here? You're more worried about defending why the Bulls drafted a COBY White 7th overall a couple years ago or a Patrick Williams 4th overall last year. And I'm trying to win a fucking NBA championship. That should be the mindset. That should be the focus. And if those players you drafted in the past can help contribute, great. But if they can't, or their best contribution is to be packaged up and traded away to fucking help you win a championship, then that's what the hell you need to do. Watching COBY White again in this game, like, I can't believe this coaching staff and this front office looks at COBY White and can honestly tell themselves that he brings anything to the table right now. He does not. And you do not have time to be fumble fucking through games hoping that he'll eventually figure it out. Send him down to the G League where it goddamn doesn't matter. He can get 25 whatever minutes a game. And he can start trying to find a rhythm, get some confidence maybe drive up his trade value a little bit. You cannot be taking away minutes from any of these other guys that are just better. Seriously. I'd much rather have Troy Brown getting these minutes, Troy Brown Jr. getting these minutes right now than fucking COBY White. And if you're in the opposite camp, I want to know what the hell have you seen? Unbelievable. The mindset must change. You don't know what's going to happen next year. The Bulls could be in a similar spot to the Nuggets next year where all three of their key players are out for extended periods of time, or some out for short times, others for extended periods of time. You know you have a good Bulls team right now. This is the only season that matters. With the moves that they have made, they have went all in. That means you must be all in. Waiting for COBY White to figure it out so he can still be the sixth best fucking guard on this team is not being all in. That is that mediocrity mindset that I would expect from fucking Chicago fans.